Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith here on Blog Talk Radio, and just glad to be here. Sorry I'm late. I actually had trouble getting into my computer this morning, and I'm glad to be here. This is a new sort of a format for the shows that I've been doing in the past, and I wanted to sort of change it up a little bit. And I had a friend who was talking to me not too long ago and was mentioning that it would be good, and it might be a good idea, really, to go through and sort of discuss, as far as healing journeys go, for adult survivors of child abuse, my process, so of how my healing journey actually started, and sort of what I did in order to get to where I am today, right? And so that's what I thought would be a really good idea, and I hope that you'll join me here. And I hope to do shows. I'm planning on doing shows every Saturday. I don't know about the time. I might have to play with the time a little bit, but 8 o'clock in the morning here in where I'm at in Calgary seems to work. And you're welcome to phone in, and if you have something you'd like to share. And I think my shows are really mainly dealing about child abuse issues, child abuse prevention issues, as well as survivor issues, adult survivors of abuse, right? And it doesn't have to be child abuse; it can be domestic violence or anything, really. Just people who have experienced a lot of trauma and who have had to learn how to cope and learn how to in order to have a better life and to deal with these things that we've been through, have had to work extremely hard to change the way that they feel about things and the way that they cope with things in order to heal, in order to move forward and actually find some enjoyment in this life and find some purpose and find some meaning. And so that's what this show really will be about. And it's not going to be a scripted show. I'm just going to talk and like I always do. Probably won't read a whole lot of material outside of just chatting and talking about my process as I went through my healing journey. And so, I appreciate everybody who's tuned into my shows over the years. And I've been doing shows here on Blog Talk Radio since 2009, and I started out doing shows mainly dealing with human rights abuses and then also child abuse issues. And then I started doing a show called One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, which really, when I started doing those shows, I just wanted to reach out to other survivors because I knew, and like we've all known, that there's so many of us out here, and sadly enough, who may just need some validation, to know like, wow, I'm not alone, and there are other people who've experienced these things, and I can get help, and I can. It is my real right to life to heal and to get some help and to enjoy life. It truly is. But it's a lot of work, and just like anything else, we have to put the time in, and we have to put the work in, and we have to do the work in order to accomplish a certain task, right? In anything in life. And so it is a lot of work to work on ourselves and work on situations in our life that need to change in order for us to lead, healthy adult lives, especially after coming out of an abusive home or some type of abuse. And so that's why I wanted to do these shows. And restoration to me is, what that means to me is maybe a little bit different than what it means in the dictionary, but I have a Webster's second edition. It's a third edition, Webster's new third edition dictionary, student edition. And I'm just going to read what they say restoration means. And restoration, actually they say restoration says the act or an instance of restoring or the state of being restored, something that has been restored to a previous condition. And restore, the word restore means to put back into existence or use, to bring back to a former or original condition, to give back, return, reinstate, renew, revive. So that's their definition of restore. And restoration, that's what that means to me, is to restore really back to the way, to a lifestyle and to a quality of life really that we should have had all along. And I know growing up abused, like the issues, as much as I have to deal with them, and I have to turn this into something positive, and I have to turn, the horror into something healthy. It wasn't my fault. But nevertheless, that doesn't really matter in the equation, because as an adult, it truly is up to me. And I'm the only one who can really do that. There's no one else around who can literally take me and just change me and say, there, done, you're fixed, right? And so when I started my healing journey many years ago, now we're looking at 2007, really, I started my healing journey, but I didn't do a whole lot of work in it as far as serious work until 2009, and it's now 2013. So I've gone through quite a few years of really working on many issues in many situations in my life that needed addressed, and it was really looking at my own behaviors, why I was doing the things that I was doing due to the abuse, and I covered most of that in One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. All the shows that I did back in 2009, 2010, 2011 mainly, and last year I spent most of my time looking at biblical information, and that's my goal, really, is to be certified as a biblical counselor or Christian counselor. But I did talk a whole lot about what I was doing and why I was doing what I was doing as far as codependency went, and as far as personality issues, a lack of trust, and a lack of willingness to let myself become involved in any kind of relationship, other than just a very few relationships, just due to trust issues. And I was always kind of self-sabotaging myself at work, and I still find that I want to fall back into those types of behaviors just because it's a learned behavior. They're learned behaviors that I learned and used growing up in the way that I did in order to cope and in order to survive. But as an adult, they don't work very well because they're unhealthy, and they're not necessary to, they're not conducive to my life now as an adult. So the coping mechanisms and things that I was using before all of a sudden become a huge hindrance in my life, and I really had to start looking at what I was doing and why I was doing what I was doing. And a lot of it was fear-based, and a lot of it was just the old way of coping with things from growing up abused, right? So I did talk a whole lot about that as far as that goes, but now I want to talk about what I actually did in order to move forward and move towards healing, right? So that's what this show will be about. A friend of mine, Kate Mitchell, actually, she's a good friend of mine in Australia. She's worked with many survivors, and she's worked with many people who not just who have dealt with child abuse, but just trauma issues in their life, traumatic experiences, and also people who have multiple personalities and issues like that. And she's just worked with so many people through the years. And she's a good friend of mine, but not only that, but she was really helping me out when I was going through the heaviest part of my healing journey, dealing with the sexual abuse that I suffered as a child. And she actually went through a process with me, which was very helpful and much appreciated, because it did help. It did help really. The last final portion of my healing journey made a huge difference in that area, and so I'll be sure and talk about that as well. And I wanted to make this show really available to everybody who wants to tune in and who actually wants to be on the show. You're more than welcome to phone in, and I'm late today actually, so it's just a short show here this morning. I can only do half-hour shows right now because I have a free account and I can't afford a paid account right now. But half an hour, we can. If you had something you wanted to talk about or sort of share with your healing journey and what really helped and what made a huge difference as far as moving you along and propelling you along to healing, or if you have any questions for me or anything like that, or just wanted to talk about your story, you're more than welcome to come on the air My shows are pretty graphic. Like I say on all of my shows, I have a graphic warning really on my shows because I'm talking about abuse, and abuse is a very serious issue. A lot of people, they don't realize like this is very, it's hard to listen to, and it may cause some people to be very uncomfortable just thinking about it, especially if you are a survivor and haven't come very far in your healing journey. You may find that the material may trigger you, and that's something you have to be very careful about. I know like triggers for me are, I still have triggers that will sort of cause me to have flashbacks and very uncomfortable memories of the abuse that I suffered as a child, and that could be a trigger that I see on TV in a movie, or it could be something I hear on the radio, or it doesn't matter, out in my daily walk. I mean, I have triggers too, and so you have to be very careful what you're listening to. And I know for myself, I'm okay because I'm in a good place now, and I'm not. Even if I am triggered, I can easily get myself back into feeling safe, secure, and that everything is okay, right? But that's not the case for everybody, especially if you haven't been on your healing journey that long and haven't done a whole lot of work and not real sure, how you're going to handle certain topics or material as far as abuse goes. It's probably best not to listen to my shows if you're not 100% sure that you're okay to listen to my shows, because I am talking about abuse, child abuse. We're talking about every type of child abuse, and talking about the issues of domestic violence, suicide, just everything to dealing with this issue, right? And so my shows are really quite graphic, and you have to listen at your own discretion and make sure that you're making the right decision, right? So this is just it's just an introductory show, and I've got about 10 minutes left, and I just thought I'd come on this morning and just talk about what I wanted to kind of do with the show, because I usually don't set up like a format as far as I don't script my shows, and I don't write them out and then present them. And usually if I'm looking at material that's outside of some sort of a PDF or an article or something like that, I usually just look at it briefly and then continue to talk. So I don't script my shows. I just kind of go where I feel like I need to go as far as explaining whatever it is that we're talking about. And so you're more than welcome to come on the show and just be a part of it. I had been doing so many shows so late at night and also so early in the morning, especially one child abuse survivor to another was on really early in the morning because I was doing it before I went to work a couple of years ago there. And then most of my shows lately have been really late at night because I get home so late in the evening and have stuff to do. And then just before I go to bed, I would do my show. And so they're on so late and so early in the morning, it's kind of hard for people to get involved in my shows. So for many years, last couple of years anyway, I haven't had very many people on my shows and very many guests or just people wanting to call in. And there was a period of time where I had quite a few people calling in who were, we all have this issue here on Blog Talk Radio. I don't know if everybody does, but I know that many of us have had these issues with, prank calls and people calling in who are just calling in to, like trolls, whatever you want to call them. And I always find that those people just really waste everybody's time. But I just hang up and I kick them out of the chat room. So if the minute I hear somebody's a troll, I just get rid of them and I just kick them out of the chat room and ban them from my chat room. So the next show I will set up a chat room, and I will definitely offer, anybody who wants to phone in, you're more than welcome to phone in. I think you have to be very careful about, if you're a survivor of abuse and you're a survivor of child abuse especially, you want to be very careful when you do present your material to the public, and knowing that this is a public situation and this material will be around for a long time. I was very okay with that because I had really never been silent about the abuse that I suffered as a child, and I never kept it all that much a secret. People, my parents were brought up on charges, so it's not like the neighbors didn't know that my parents had been abusing us. People knew. Through my adult life, I told many people, just out of, people would talk about their childhood and ask me questions, and then instead of lying and saying, oh, it was perfect, it was wonderful, I had the best mother in the whole world, the best dad, and we had a lovely time, and we had a wonderful time, and all of my siblings, we all get along so great. I just told them the truth, and, it was a harsh reality, and most people would be pretty shocked, and then other people would be like, oh, well, no big deal, right? But over the years, I didn't really keep it silent or keep it quiet, but I didn't go public with my material until I started doing Blog Talk Radio and started writing a blog on a blogger. So at that point, I realized that, to me, my abusive, dysfunctional family is not here for me anyway, and so it's not like it's going to cut any ties that are going to be that I want to hang on to, and so I'm going to just be honest and be truthful, and it's not going to really affect my relationship with my family. This is what I was thinking at the time, because most of my family's dead anyway, and the remaining family members are all they're just as messed up as I was many years ago, and they it's not that they're in denial, they're in silence. They really don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. We all knew the problems there. We were all born into the mess, and they really prefer to let's just say ignore it. And so for me, it wasn't a big deal for me to go public with myself. And I think, as a survivor, everybody has to really think about things before you do things. You have to make sure that if you do want to come out and talk on the radio or talk on Blog Talk Radio or write your information out on the public, public worldwide web there, you need to be very sure that you're okay with the consequences of that, because there could be consequences, and there usually are. My family, the remaining members that I have, it did put a wedge in between my relationship with my niece, my nephew, and I did drop all contact with my whole entire family that's left, because there's not that many of us left now, just a few. We're all kind of dying off as the years go by, so it's getting smaller and smaller all the time. And so I did put a wedge in there, and I decided that I wanted to drop all contact with them anyway, because they weren't being realistic, and they weren't being honest with themselves or with me about the situation. And because they want to be in denial, because the pain is too great. If they wanted to go through a healing journey, as for instance as I'm doing on their own, then they'd have to face the truth and the reality of what happened, and they don't want to do that. So they'd rather just pretend that it didn't happen, because life is, to them, that's the only way they can cope. That's the only way that they can deal and be okay with the situation, because otherwise they have to admit that my dad was raping my mother, that my dad was abusing my brothers, that my mother had a huge, serious problem with me and did not do a good job of taking care of me or any of her kids, really, but she, especially for me, because I was the last born and I was born out of rape, marital rape, and so she didn't want me and was not happy that I was around, and was very tough and very abusive, quite brutal as far as physical abuse goes, and as well psychologically, emotionally abusive, and verbally abusive, and just abusive to me in every way you can think of, except for my mother did not sexually abuse me. But my brother did, and my mother knew about it, and my brother, I was 8 years old, and my brother was 13 years older, so he was 21. He was a 21-year-old man, and I was 8 years old, and he abused me sexually for about a year, and just under a year, and then my mother did nothing about it, and she knew about it because I told her. And I don't know, whether maybe she made him leave, or I'm not sure what happened, but he left the country, and he moved to Canada. But my relationship with my mother was never really healthy, and until about my 20s, I'd say. Right in my 20s, she needed some serious help, and my dad was still abusing her and still trying to rape her, and I stuck around to help her out because I knew she needed. I really did want to protect my mother, even though my mother was my main abuser. So there was all kinds of psychological damage done, a lot of huge issues, and my family, they don't want to have to deal with that, because then they have to deal with the fact that they did absolutely nothing to help the situation. My dad was the cause of it, really. My siblings did nothing to help, and went and had their own lives, even though they were abused when they were younger too, but they moved on and did their own thing and did nothing to help me out, and I was the youngest. So they don't want to have to think about that. And so by me breaking off the relationship with my family, it didn't really matter to me. Actually, it was the healthiest thing that I could have done for my own sake. because they're all still trapped in their codependency and the different types of issues that they took on because of the situation in the home. And so until they do a healing journey, I can't really hang around with them or have much to do with them because I'm on my healing journey. So I can see all the things that they're doing because I was doing them too. But now that I can see what abuse causes and what many survivors will pick up as abuse as traits and ways of coping, I see what they're doing, and I can't be involved in that anymore. So I talked a whole lot about that on my shows, on one child abuse survivor to another. But moving forward, like for the next show and the next following shows, we'll just take a look at the actual process, where I started at, what caused me to actually start the healing journey in the first place, and at what point I was at, which is really quite hard to listen to, but what actually had to happen for me to continue to live and to want to have a better life and want to heal instead of just suffering along as a victim, and sort of the point where I actually did become a real survivor. So I'll start there, and we'll start that on the next show. We're out of time here today. But thanks, everybody, for listening to my shows. And, be very careful when you're listening to my shows. I do talk about certain topics, very heavy-duty topics, and so you have to be sure you're okay to listen. If you want to be on a show, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to set up a chat room next weekend on Saturday, same time, and you can let me know if you really want to be involved with the show. If the time doesn't work for you, let me know. And I'll be back around next Saturday, 8 o'clock. And we can always move the time a little bit. I have a little bit of time to play with here on Saturdays, and I have to do this show in the morning or later in the evening because of the fact that I have a free account and there's a blocked period of time where free accounts can't use a certain period of time during the day because it's prime time. But I can kind of play with this time here as far as setting up a show. So, if people are really interested in the future, you can let me know what may work a little bit better for you, because this show really, it's not just about me. I mean, I have really, like I said, been focusing on my own story and my own journey, but I'm really out here trying to reach out to survivors and other people who have been through this, the horrors and the trauma of abuse, and really are on their healing journey or would like more information about how to get started on a healing journey and what to do, and you do have to be careful when you reach out, and you want to reach out to trustworthy sources, trustworthy people, and you need to make sure that these people are not going to then take your information and hurt you with it or make things worse, right? And so you do have to really look out for yourself. You have to become your number one best advocate for yourself, and make sure that you're getting what you need, right? And that's important. That is very important, because many of us, and actually most of us, will not do that for ourselves because we're not used to that. We're not used to getting our needs met, and we're not used to actually sticking up for ourselves and standing up for ourselves, because many times, especially growing up abused as a child, we're not allowed to stand up for ourselves, and we're not allowed to get help, and we're not allowed to think that we actually deserve anything, or especially any of us who have been so beaten down and battered down emotionally, psychologically, verbally, that we might pick up those traits and take them through adult life thinking that we are those things and that we don't deserve help. And that's why I did a whole lot of talking. I don't know if anybody wants to go back and listen to my shows, but I was really heavy duty talking about what that type of abuse does to people and what it did to me. And in that, hopefully other people will realize, like, no, that is wrong, and no one deserves to be treated like that, and we do deserve help, and we deserve to have a good life. We deserve to heal and to enjoy this life, and to move forward and find our purpose in this life, and to really make something of it. We deserve that, right? So we'll talk to you real soon. Well, actually, next Saturday, I'm going to try to do another show during the middle of the week. It'll probably be about child abuse prevention and whatnot, but I haven't set that one up yet. But for sure, I'll be back on next Saturday, 8 o'clock in the morning here, Mountain Standard Time. And be sure to get a hold of me if you need anything. If I can help, I definitely will. Leave me a message if you'd like, and with ideas or information. If you have anything that you would like to share, if you'd like to be on the show, you're more than welcome to let me know ahead of time by sending me a message here. You can contact me just about everywhere that I'm listed there on my show page for Facebook and whatnot, right? So take good care of yourself, and God bless, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.